This presentation is called GMRS, a brief discussion about this two-way radio service. I made this presentation for those who are intended to start with the hobby, for those who already started but want to know more about it, and for those that don't have any idea what is GMRS. This presentation is not for those that are practitioner or ham radio license that knows pretty well all the topics I'm including here. So think about it. So let's start with it. The first slide is GMRS means General Mobile Radio Service. It is a EHF based two-way radio service in the United States used for short to medium range, reliable and higher power voice communication, operating around 462 and 467 megahertz. In this case, ultra high frequency is working in the band of 70 centimeters. GMRS allows users to access 22 channels plus 8 for repeaters. They are programmable. GMRS is governed by FCC Part 95 Subpart E rules, and it is required to have a license. When we talk about radio, we need to understand the limitation of the radio communications. Let's put an ideal case. Imagine the Earth. In the Earth, you don't have buildings, you don't have mountains, you don't have houses, you don't have um, trees. It's like a bee and the ocean, but here isn't like a land. So there is an equation that shows the horizon you can be visible. It's called line of sight. The horizon is related to 3.569. That's a constant related to the diameter of the Earth, multiplied by the square root of the height of the where the antenna is located. Okay, imagine you have this handy radios, handled radio, and you are told like 6 feet. If you transmit from one point like A, at the point B is basically the level of the ground, you're gonna get around 299 miles of distance to that point. If there is another person the same height like you, so the distance will be the double. So theoretically, you're gonna get like about 6 miles from one point to another point. That would be something like in the ocean. You are in the ocean in a boat, and your radio is transmitting with 6 feet height. The other guy should hear you in about 6 miles. Okay, that's a limitation. There is another story when you are transmitting to the open space, like where you are doing radio satellite communications, like through the International Space Station. Just handy or handle with 5 watts, you can have a communication with someone is in around 3,000 miles away, because the repeater of those satellites are able to transmit your signal, though it is quite different when you are on the Earth than to the space. Let's continue with the next slide, which is something related to the power. It's very common among people that they think if they get a radio that has double power, it gives the double in radius. That is wrong. Because it's something related to the inverse square law. As a wave travels away from its source, the energy is spread out over the increasingly larger area. It is because the area increases as a square of the radius. The radius is the distance you want to reach. but the intensity per unit area must decrease by the same factor. So, if distance double 2 times, intensity becomes a half a square. It means a quarter. So, if you get a radio, two watts radio, and someone hears you at 1.5, considering all the limitation on land, um, having a 20 watts radio doesn't mean you're gonna get 50 miles. That is not true. So what you're gonna get is increasing about 20%, 25% in distance. Okay. The truth of this having power is clarity. In the way you have more power, you're gonna get more clear, among others that listening to you. Okay. I'm talking about transmissions on land. Okay. It's important to mention the relationship between FRS and GMRS. FRS means Family Radio Service. They are those radios you can buy everywhere. And Amazon and Walmart and all of these places you can find those cheap radios that might or might not have a screen that give you like 14 channels. They are pre-recorded, but you are not able to change anything by programming the radio. You can change the channel itself, and that's it. GMRS includes the 1 to 14 channels, but additionally, there are channels from 15 to 20 seconds that can transmit simplex or via repeater. Simplex means the radio to radio, and repeater you use a repeater that is going to extend your signal to a bunch of miles. Um, we are going to talk about a little bit later in regards of repeaters. It's important to mention that quality radios use wideband FM radio. But if FRS radios are cheap radios and they use by default narrow band is imposed by FPC. That narrow band the bandwidth is 12.5 kilohertz. The problem having these narrow bands is, but since they use a less frequency, it will work more efficient for long range communication. Wideband use more frequency, offering better sound quality but over shorter distances. The choice depends on your needs. Narrowband is for business, uh, eh, needing communications over long distance, only with 12.5 kilohertz, which are efficient and reliable. Wideband using 20 kilohertz channels is better for environment where sound quality is crucial, like security teams in noisy areas. However, wideband consumes more power and spectrum. You see here in the top right side the wideband in blue and the other narrowband. And the problem is when calling GMRS radio using wide to an FRS radio that is by default narrow, the resultant can be a sound loud and distorted like you are swallowing the microphone. However, the inverse, calling from a FRS narrow band to a GMRS wide band, can result in a like a quiet and thin sound. So if you have a problem, you can fix it easily in GMRS, not FRS. GMRS, you adjust your programming, change from wide to narrow, and that's it. I mentioned before that in order to be able to transmit GMRS, you had to issue a license. And it is common or natural that many people want to buy a GMRS and start talking, and that's it. I have this radio GMRS, let's talk and such. However, it's not legal. No one of FCC is going to come after you because you are transmitting via GMRS. But we need to know that if you are transmitting without a license, it's not legal. Okay. Why? Because GMRS is governed by FCC, Federal Communication Commission, the rule title 47, Chapter 1, Subchapter D, Part 95, Subpart E, that includes everything related to GMRS. The good thing about GMRS is you're not in a test, one exam, one interview. Just pay 35 bucks for 10 years term. What is the coverage? When you get a license, you cover you and immediate family members. Who are those? Spouse, children, grandchildren, stepchildren, parents, grandparents, step-parents, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and in-laws. Who are not covered? Cousins, employees, friends, and neighbors. Something important to say is no matter if you have license for ham radio, you cannot transmit GMRS. You have to get your GMRS license. I have ham radio general level for license, and I also have a GMRS license. Okay, so it's important to mention that thing. You're gonna get something like the license, something like you see in the right side of the screen. And the part that is not something friendly is getting your license. The process of getting the FCC license is painful, no friendly, uh, takes some time, and sometimes confusing. So if you try by yourself without having any instruction, you're gonna waste a lot of time. Okay, you need to get a FRN, which is the FCC registration number, pay a fee, and you get the call sign. I'm not going to talk about how to get the your license here because there are many videos in YouTube that explain step by step how to get your license. I didn't follow that. You watch the video and then you start your process. You watch a segment, stop there, and process and computing, and the next segment, and process and computing, and you get it. It's straightforward, but need to follow the process. Okay, when we're talking about GMRS, there is something important to mention. I'm not going to very deep in this part, hardware. And it's common to get the handhelds because there are two types of radios, the handhelds and the mobile. The mobile are those radios bigger that you can transmit from your car. There is an antenna that you install on the roof of the car and has more power, like 25 watts. But it's common that people get the handles, and there are many options in the market. Okay, and when I talking about this, is related to the budget. If you can afford premium handheld radios, you won't repent because this radio can offer superior durability, better waterproofing, better transmission, better receiver performance, advanced features like digital mode, DMR, DSR, Bluetooth, and GPS. Many things can offer these premium radios. I'm not saying the cheapest one I'm going to offer that, but the quality is another level. Okay, you can find radios of $25 GMRS, and they work, but the level of quality, the electronics itself are not at the level, and they are susceptible to signal interference. For example, if you are close to an area with magnetic field, like substations or other places, you can have interferences with this type of radio. I'm not saying you don't buy them because I have Chinese as well, but take into account that that thing can happen. Another important thing to mention, and I want to stop a little bit in this part, is the antenna. We're talking about hardware. I always heard that in radio frequency, transmission and reception is more important. The antenna and the coaxial cable, what is used, than the equipment itself, I mean the radio itself. Um, Usually, when you get a handheld radio, it comes a rubber duck antenna. There are, but there are many other options that can improve your communications. If you see the second one, the telescoping whip antennas, they were the previous. I mean, the old fancy antennas. When I was a kid, I see guys with this handheld radio with a big red antenna, extending antenna as a telescope, and this antenna is more efficient and better signal gain if compared to rubber duck. Okay, but of course it's not good looking like a rubber duck. You see some piece of metal standing, and the problem with it is if you bend, probably you cannot retrieve again. You might damage. So you can find those that can screw in the radio. If you damage, you can buy another one. Okay. However, using the rubber duck is fancy, a small size, you can carry in your pocket, whatever, and you don't see this piece of metal there. Okay. Another option that I widely recommend for better communication is those that you can buy in the market, but also you can make it yourself. It's called roll up J-pole or a slim jean antenna. It's the one you see in the right side. It's with a ladder cable, and that old fancy cable for TV. There are 50 ohms impedance or 300 ohms impedance. I got ladder cable 300 ohms impedance and made my slim jim antennas. They are fantastic. They work pretty well. Of course, you have to extend this antenna over a pole, whatever you use. Uh, for example, I use a PVC, and I usually have radio nets on Saturday nights, and with people is about 30 miles from my home. 30 miles is not possible with the rubber dog antennas, just only through a repeater. But in order to, I call to the repeater, in order to get the line of sight to the repeater, I need to be out of home. Sometimes the weather is not good, so I made my slim jean antenna, put in PVC and left outside home, and then bring inside the home the coax cable. I have fantastic with only 2 watts power, fantastic communication with those guys because there is no limitation. It's like you are calling to the space. No limitation, no trees, nothing, and you have a direct line of sight. And those guys are 30 miles, but the repeater can extend you like 40, 50 miles, depending the height and other factors. This antenna, I highlighted here with the arrow, how you can calculate the slim jim or J-pole, and there are videos on YouTube how to make the slim jim antenna. It's not a big deal, let me tell you. It's very easy. Just paying per antenna, let's say $20 or less. It's not too much. There are antennas like a signal stick. They are improved, provide better performance if compared to rubber duck. And there are other antennas that you can also make by yourself or buy in the market. In this case, you have to find a UHF antenna called a Yagi. They are small, but also you can make. Is not a big deal. If you put in YouTube Yagi antenna, UHF a Yagi antenna, you're gonna find a bunch of videos how to make them. Okay, these Yagi antennas are directional antennas. It like concentrate your signal in the other end of the antenna, and you get higher gain in terms of the your how you want to propagate your signal. Okay, I use directional antenna, this Yagi, for transmitting and receiving from satellites, especially transmitting satellites with 5 watts radio. You have to have a good gain in order that reach the satellites, and these 5 watts in this antenna works pretty well. The other way to get from the satellite is good. Okay, one limitation: the antenna needs to be aimed to the other guy who has the other antenna. Why? If you are aiming to the north and your friend is to the east, probably he's not going to hear you, neither you hear him. That's the limitation. The rubber dot, the telescope, the roll up, slim jim, the signal stick, they are omnidirectional. So no matter you point wherever you are, is going to radiate in all directions. But the Yankee antenna is going to radiate your signals in one specific direction. I recommend to you to go to YouTube and watch this video made by Jim Reed, Professor Jim Reed, November 4, Bravo, Foxtrot, Romeo. I call him professor because he teaches classes to get the license for ham radio. And there is a video in YouTube that explains pretty well all the antennas. Let's talk about briefly about radio programming. If you see here this table, it comes from FCC. There are 22 channels. The first 14 are for GMRS, and it describes the power. 2 watts, the channel 1 to 7, point watt, channel 8 to 14. Notice that the channel 8 to 14 is 467 megahertz, and then channel 1 to 6 is 462, and then come back again to 462 from 15 to 20 seconds. Okay. It's important to mention that the table is not showing, but all of these 14 channels of FRS is only with a narrow bandwidth. For GMRS, you can have the option narrow or wide. I already mentioned about that. In this slide, I show what are in total the number of frequencies approved by GMRS. There are 30. So what it means that is there are 22 that is already programmed in radio, but you can, as a GMRS program, 8 more related to the channel 15 to 20 seconds in order to be able reaching repeaters. Here I show, for example, this one, the first one, the red square 467550 is basically 5 megahertz added to the top one in the table 462550. Every time you program your radio, you're gonna add 5 megahertz in positive way. It's the only way. So here you see channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, and then it goes 15 because they are the 52, and here there are the 57. The 57 here is for channel 8, 9, and 10, that FRS and GMRS, but also these are related to the case of having program your radio for repeater. Important to mention, only certified FCC radios can transmit on GMRS frequency. Not because you had Bofeng, UB 5R, you can program your radio with GMRS, you can transmit. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. Okay? So you cannot bring another radio which is not approved by FCC to transmit GMRS. There are specific technical specifications of the radio that are required by FCC that needs to be programmed in that radio by the manufacturer. Let's see something about that. Example of Chinese radio. It is GMRS radio. And when you remove the battery, no matter this says GMRS, it's a sticker that comes from the manufacturer. What is important is this FCC ID. You get that serial of numbers and put an FCC database or FCC certification webpage. You can find it in Google. It's going to show this image come from here, from there, and this one. In this second one, you're gonna see GMRS two-way radio. It tells you that the radio is certified. Okay, so when you get GMRS radio, make sure to check this before. Okay, let's talk. Continue talking about programming. Uh, you can program your mobile or your handle um, by following the manufacturer manual. But honestly, if you try to program manually by the instruction given by the provider, manufacturer, you can become frustrated because those manuals are literally translated with Google into English, and that translation is really not the best. I'm not saying something against Google, but there are some interpretation that are wrongly done. So mm, if you try, you can make it. But what I recommend is to get software called Chirp. This software is needs a cable. That's usually when you get a radio, they sell with or without the cable. Get with the cable, and that software can be downloaded to your computer. It's free. It's an open source software. They constantly update it. Let me tell you, in the ham radio um, um, people, I mean, this community, there are a lot of guys. They develop software for free. This is something quite different of the rest on other industries that everyone wants to make money. In this community, many people do this for fun, for helping others, or whatever. So this software is easy to run, and you plug in the computer. This cable has a microchip here, electronics here, and it installs a driver. And when it's that, you are able to hear or read the radio. There is another thing related to programming, which is the tones. CTCSS or DC or DCS or DTCS is the same. Are basically privacy. They create privacy in your call. I'm gonna talk a little bit later, but it's important to make sure that you can talk with someone that they already have any of these privacy tones installed in order that you can hear them or they can hear you. This image is my chirp install. When I open it, it says a new chirp version is chirp. I haven't updated. They update from time to time because the every radio that comes to the market or any actualization or whatever, they update this um, tool and release to the market. Not the market, it's released to the community. Okay. When you connect the cable and check download from the radio, you can download this table here in black and white. The rest ones is basically written by myself. Is to show when I decide to use the channel 15 to 20 second, adding the duplex, which is for the repeater, is basically once you push the repetitive button, is push to transmit button, the radio is gonna send your signal in this frequency 467550 in case number 15, and the repeater is going to repeat to everyone with the original one 462550. Okay, there are a number of things here that you can update, like you can write the name for this repeater of the city whatever, or whatever you want. This is my friend that use this frequency and such. And tone mode, if you select the tone, is going to show a table here. Choose the tone. There is something as tone squelch. Tone squelch a double key. Okay, is create a double element of filtering when you are talking in order to minimize interference with others. And DTCS is related to digital. I'm going to show next slide something about it. Look at this. CTCSS stands for Continuous Tone Code Squelch System. Basically, is you are talking with someone and you don't want the rest of the people listen to you. It doesn't mean that's totally private. It is not. Is any other way discover you are talking and start check different tones in radio, and any moment is going to find you. But it minimizes. Each tone is a specific frequency that allows radio to filter the signals. Only radios with this same tone are able to communicate each other. You with a tone can hear other without a tone, but the other guy without a tone cannot hear you. DCS or DTCS, as is appearing chirp here, DTCS is the same thing, is a digital code squelch. DTCS means digital tone code squelch. In basically transmits unique digital code along with the audio signal to control the squelch, and operates exactly the same as CTCSS, but using the digital portion. Okay. Today, the more modern radios, especially for repeaters, they are programmed by manufacturer with DCS, and then with all radio. For example, I have a Kenwood GMRS radio that is old, 15, 20 years old, and it doesn't have DCS. I wanted to transmit to another location from here, like 45 miles, and I couldn't because they had DCS and my radio cannot be programmed with DCS. So that's a matter of technology. And this is like we see different tones for CTCSS. Okay, going from 67 kilohertz to 167.9 kilohertz. Okay, so if you have a, for example, channel 19 with this frequency, and then you program for a repeater plus 5, and the repeater requires 123 as a tone, you have to do it like this. Once you do it, basically you upload that data in the screen of chip shows that upload that data to your radio, and that is it's programmed and you can talk and such. The same thing for DCS. DCS, since it's digital, it doesn't use decimals values. Okay, it comes from 023 to or 23 to 162, and it was basically the same. Talking about your repeaters, is repeater is one way to extend your call by using this device that can bring your signal from a couple of miles to 50-mile communication. Accessing a repeater requires more than just tuning a channel. It requires understanding how it operates, that there is always an offset. That offset is 5 megahertz plus 5 megahertz, and you are going to have 8 options from channel 15 to channel 22 to add a repeater. Okay. As I said before, there is no other way but having an offset of plus 5 megahertz. If you don't know what are the repeaters nearby you, you can find them in repeatersbook.com or mygmr.com. Okay, you write your um, city or postal code and you can find it. There are two type repeaters: the open and the private. The open, everyone can transmit free and everyone is happy. But the private are very common everywhere. Private, you have to request a permission and it is not granted. So the fact that you send a request, nobody tell you that for sure you're gonna get it. Someone can never reply to you, or they might say no, this is private. So in the case you don't get any answer, or you get an answer saying no, don't transmit. Okay, don't transmit because it's private. It's not your equipment. Okay. There is something now called travel tone. There are repeaters along highways that they usually use travel tone because there are many guys with the GMRS in their car, in the truck, and they change the repeater uh, by the way they are driving by, and they use a travel tone. They make it easy when you hear something in a frequency. You say, I hear it's repeated because when I PTT to talk, I don't hear anything but someone is transmitting to you. So you can try first 141.3 as a tone and check if you can transmit. If you are not sure it's open or private, just stop and check and those web pages. Here are the same table we saw before, but I added another column here called repeater 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 8. Why? Because I have seen folks, they say, okay, repeater 5. Say, I tell, okay, and 19. Say, no, but I repeater 5. Say, they don't know that channel 19 is the same repeater 5. Okay? Some radios already have been programmed with repeaters, and the guy receives the radio and say, okay, I'm gonna talk in repeater 1, 2, 3, whatever, but they don't know that a repeater is related to that channel. They already have set it up with tone or without tone. Okay. And if we talk about GMRS or ham radio itself, there are some rules that come from FCC. FCC requires that you state your call sign every 15 minutes and at the end of the conversation. For example, your call sign is WSXS123. You had to say something at the end, your call sign and clear. This is very common in the United States. It's important that you mention by using the phonetic alphabet. The phonetic alphabet is easy to learn. It's used for continuous way, which is Morse code, and everyone can understand easily when you state your call sign using the phonetic alphabet. But remember, GMRS is a public band, so everyone can hear you what you are saying. Don't assume that you, because you are having a tone, no matter CTCSS, DTCS, DTCS, or tone squash, don't assume that nobody can hear you. Anyone that can catch what you are doing with your radio can hear you. So it's not private itself. Okay. Another important thing to mention, if you are trying to talk with a handheld inside your car, don't do it. Why? Because you are like a Faraday cage. Mr. Faraday was a guy who discovered many things related to electricity. And one of the things he discovered is if you put a sort of magnetic field inside of like a cage, metal cage, that magnetic field is practically not allowed to be outside of that. So the same for the radio. So at the end, when you're transmitting, you are releasing a wave, it's an electromagnetic wave. Low power, it's true, but if you are in a car, you have something similar to that. So probably nobody gonna hear you. So in that case, I recommend you get in the market those antennas that are magnet-based antenna with a coax cable. Just make sure the coax cable goes to internal inside of the car without be pinched by the door. So there are ways to do it. And coax cable, there are a number of coax. So good ones are recommended RG58, RJAX, or LMR 240. I think the best is LMR 240. If you buy but operating pinch codes, you're gonna ruin that codes because your signal is going to be out, you know, to hear, or just basically are not going to get what you want. There are some rules that has been published by FCC. I'm gonna read them. FCC says don't send message in connection with any activity which is against the federal, state, or local law, or transmit false or deceptive message, or messages that are coded or with hidden meanings, or putting music, whistling, or sound effects or material to amuse or entertain. Advertisement or other offers for sale or goods or service. Advertisement for a political candidate or political campaign. International distress signals such as the word Mayday. For example, Mayday is used for emergency for boats, airplanes, but we as a um, GMRS radio license is not the way. If you have a emergency, first thing, this is my call sign. You state your call sign and then say, this is an emergency, I need assistance, this is my location, please call 911 or please come here and help me, whatever is the situation. And sending messages to any station that material radio services, to any unauthorized station, or to any foreign station. It's important to mention here when I say sound effects or material to amuse and entertain. There are signals called slow scan TV. They are images that are, many guys transmit with different bands, mainly by VHF, UHF, but it's not allowed in GMRS. Okay, if you hear something like that. Finally, if you decided to start in this hobby or you already started, don't forget to get your license before transmit. You can hear whatever you want. You can hear, in fact, you can get radios for ham radio. You can hear everyone listening. There is no law against that. But you cannot transmit because it's unlawful. So that's what I have so far in regards to GMRS introduction. If you have any question, any doubt, please write me in this channel and then I reply back as soon as I can. Bye bye.